Hey peoples, we're going to be doing some desoldering today, and we're going to be doing some desoldering with bismuth, which is probably one of the coolest metals you can buy on the internet. If you combine it with tin, you'll see that bismuth has a melting temperature of 271, tin 232, but if you combine them together in the right ratio, you get a melting temperature of around 138. And this is a phase diagram. I'll go on about that more in another video, but it tells you how metals combine as you vary the ratio of two metals and as you vary the temperature. These areas here this is all solid on the bottom and the sides. This is like crystallized bismuth in liquid. This is crystallized tin in liquid, and this is just all liquid. All of this liquid here has the same ratio of tin and bismuth, and what isn't in that ratio will actually just crystallize out here. All right, so here's some tin solder. We're just going to measure the melting point of that with this thermometer here. Here we go. It's a liquid and now it's a solid. So that was around 215, right? Now this is bismuth out here. I just crushed a little off. Stick that in there. What do we got? 230, 240, turning to a solid, 246. Okay, that seems about right. But now watch what happens when I combine these. Remember, it was like around 220 and around 240 or something like that, and it's going to be radically lower now that I combine these two. And I'm not combining them in the perfect amount. As you can see, this is just very approximate, and there's some impurities, but we're still probably going to get a much lower melting point here. Let's just see what this is. Make sure that's nice and mixed. Let's stick it in there. All right, so it's a liquid now, 218, still very liquid. And also watch how long this holds its liquidity. See how bismuth holds its heat? That's kind of one of the reasons you want to use it for desoldering. Still a liquid, look at that. And we're down to 130, still a liquid, 134, still a liquid. That's how much time you'll have to desolder things if you use bismuth and tin. So as you can see, we were 250, 220, we combined them, and we're at 130 with these impurities. And the one thing that you do have to do is you do have to heat up those pins to the point that they melt into this flux, because that's almost certainly lead-free solder. So here, let me just take a little bit of this and bring it to this side. And you see how easy it is to move around, because the tweezers will actually cool it off enough that you can kind of grip it. So here I am, I'm melting, should be all melted on that side. Okay, and ideally you kind of leave a trained blob of this stuff. This stuff remelted by now, so let's just melt that up again. And we should be close now to being able to pull this off. This is not a very level table I'm on right here. Okay, sometimes the corners take a little more work. Oh, and let me get this tool that I like sometimes to pull these things off. Okay, there we go. See how it just slides off really easily there? I'm barely touching that. I believe bismuth and leaded solder actually works better than lead-free solder, but anyway, we're just demonstrating this, so we'll just demonstrate this. And obviously to make it with 60-40 solder, you just add that instead of lead-free solder. Okay. And trick is just be patient. It's not going to come off right away. Everything's kind of got to melt. Everything's got to stick. Okay, and what you want to do is not just melt it, but you want to actually have the lead-free solder in there mix with the bismuth, and that will make the whole thing much lower melting temperature. You know what? I'm just going to add a little bit more of it, because the other thing is the more of this stuff you have, the more kind of low melt solder you have, the longer it holds its heat. It's kind of a larger thermal mass really helps. Okay, seems to be close now. Generally where you can, sometimes you want to take this off and you don't care about the chip because the chip is broken. So then you can kind of just make sure you don't damage the pads on the board, but that's a pretty easy ask to not do that. But if you want to keep the chip, sometimes you just have a chip you find on a board that you want to reuse or try, like generally not a big one like this, but a little one. When you can generally damage the chip the most, or even the board, is this part right here when you try and pull it off. And that's mostly from not being patient enough. Okay, so this side's lifted. You see that lift up? This side's lifted. Gently, gently. I think it's pretty much done. Yes. Okay, there we go. And now we can just kind of run this stuff down. It'll just droop off. And if you're really precious with this chip, you probably want to use a heat gun or something at this point, or soldering braid or something like that. But I'm obviously not going to reuse this, so I don't really care. But anyway, this chip should be perfectly good. You see that was still liquid here? I mean, that's how much time you have to use this stuff. It's crazy. I take these kind of jaws of life stuff here, but I mounted vertically, or not quite vertically, but definitely at an angle like this. It'll last a long, long time because you'll see that it's not really using up the solder braid. So there's still solder on there from last time, and then just put the chip on one side. If it's very sensitive, I tend to go down the other side of the solder braid, and it definitely still will wick it up, which it just did, but it wicks it up and runs down here. See how it just dripped off there? And this is a big chip, so I'm holding it by hand. Generally, I'll use a pair of tweezers for that, but you can kind of see the solder running off just as I go down. And then you can just kind of scooch it and encourage it along. You just add a little more bismuth, mix it up, and now you pretty much have as much as you did when you started. And as you can see, this is not a pound either. This is about 1/3. This is 1/3. I had 3 chunks like this when I got it. So I used, just crystals full. I guess I still have this as well. So yeah, you're not gonna go broke doing this. You're not gonna save a lot of money either, I hate to say, because a lot of these things are worth nothing as well. But sometimes you have a chip that fries or something and you got to get it off a board, and it's got a whole bunch of pins, and you can do a hot air gun and all that kind of stuff. But seriously, this works way better. It's much easier. It's much quicker. All right, that's all I got. It's already too much. We'll see you next video.